Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to have some Division 20 ranked online gameplay in the light heavyweight division, and we're going to be using none other than Tito Ortiz. This video was requested by a subscriber on my Mark Cassie subscriber request video, and shout out to Chef Rameses who gave me the idea to do this video. And yeah, Tito Ortiz I'm not a big fan of Tito. Obviously done a lot for the sport and the promotion, but I was more of a Chuck Liddell fan. I think that's one of my first actual fights I watched, not live because I think I was too young, but I watched the next day when my dad watched it, was Tito getting finished by Chuck Liddell. And yeah, I was a big Chuck Liddell fan, one of my favourites when it comes to the sport of MMA and UFC. But yeah, nonetheless, Tito was obviously very exciting. We know his style. He's just going to look to wrestle you. He has the iconic celebration at the end of his fights where he, digs that grave. And yeah, that's a pretty cool celebration, I've got to admit. And we're coming up against Jan, who's of course the former champ, lost to Glover Teixeira in his last bout. So it's the legendary Polish Power versus Tito Ortiz. And I like that obviously he's shorts as well. It's so cool the way you see the fighters used to brand themselves with their shorts, like you look at Chuck Liddells and stuff like that. But obviously with the fight deals now and the way the UFC is run, you don't really get to see that sort of customization anymore, not to that extent. Anyway, but you can see that we've taken my opponent down here and just working in the mount, just throwing little punches, building up GA, posturing up every now and then and throwing some ground and pound, being very cautious because I don't want to posture up and then my opponent slip and then get up. But as you can see, he's done a good job there of getting up and then denies the takedown straight away. You can see that I'm being fairly aggressive with the takedowns. That's just because I don't feel Tito's stand-up isn't where it needs to be for me to be standing with Jan. Obviously, Jan's very, very good on the feet. He's got a variety of skill sets. Boxing and kickboxing is quite good. And he has that really annoying helicopter kick, which is just the absolute worst kick in the game. Like, one that lands 9 times out of 10, it's at least a stun, and then I'd probably say 7 times out of 10, it's a knockdown. And yeah, it's incredibly frustrating to deal with that. But going into this fight, I knew Jan had that kick, so I was trying to be a bit careful. And Tito, of course, when we're talking about the strengths and the weaknesses, we know that his strength lies in the grappling, more so the wrestling. Beautiful front kick from my opponent there. And then he does a good, rips me to the body. You see, absolutely tears up my body, then knocked me down. I get up again, rips me to the body again. So, could have easily finished the fight there, to be honest. My opponent kept going. It wouldn't have taken much to get me out of there at that point, but luckily we survived. But as I was saying, in terms of strengths, of course, it's going to be Tito's grappling. He doesn't actually have the worst power, it felt like. I used him in a couple fights, but this is the fight that I've chosen to show to you guys. And yeah, he doesn't actually have the worst power. As you can see, we do land a clean overhand, which somehow doesn't get a stun. But overall, I felt like his power wasn't too bad. I definitely felt like his combinations aren't, of course, where they're meant to be, because that's not his strong suit, especially kicking and boxing combos. That's not his style. So if you've ever seen Tito Ortiz fight, you know that he's not going to have the best combinations when it comes to that regard. But as you can see there, he definitely has power. The speed does let him down a bit, but we cracked my opponent there, done a good job. He doesn't have the Kimura transition to an armbar, which is very unfortunate because that's my favourite submission, and obviously where I spend most of my time in side control. I thought it would be good to work in that sub, but like I said, Tito Ortiz doesn't really have that, so I'm really just looking for a ground and pound finish. I'm going to look to dominate and control my opponent, which I've done a good job of doing so far. Of course, the round prior wasn't a good round because of the knockdown, and my opponent did hurt me. And, that is inevitable. The longer you're on the feet using Tito, the more likely you are to get finished, and that's just something you've got to accept. You really need to get the fight onto the ground as quick as possible. Like with my Damian Maia video, you need to get your opponent down. I look for a submission, obviously slightly different because Tito Ortiz, you're looking more for a ground and pound finish, which may take a little bit longer than a submission finish. Obviously, submission finishes can come very quickly because it's dependent on a lot of different variables. So you've just got to be a bit more patient, got to look to control a bit more. As you can see, I tried to sway away from that kick, still ended up hitting me. And his chin health is something that you know, it isn't the greatest either. And in terms of recovery, I'd say he didn't actually feel too bad. I did get hurt a lot throughout this fight, and I did manage to recover. So I've got to give Tito credit on that regard. Obviously, we saw how good his recovery was against Anderson Silva in the boxing fight. Of course, obviously he's very old now, but yeah, that was definitely not a great performance. But what can you expect? Tito can't really. He's not been known for his striking. Goes into boxing and he's fighting against Anderson Silva. He's one of the best combat fighters of all time, and we're absolutely starched. So you've really got to stick to the wrestling. That is what's going to win you the fights. The longer you stand, like I said, the more chance it is of you getting finished. He does have power, so one thing you can do is outwork your opponent on the ground, really nasty ground the pound, so that when you do get to the feet, all it takes is one mishap from your opponent. You land a big strike and you get your opponent out of there. That is a very viable option and a very good way to win with Tito Ortiz, because like I said, that power really does hit. And at this division, if we're honest, everyone should really have that power. It is light heavyweights. They're very heavy, so most strikes should be hurting you. He lands a clean roundhouse to the body, which stuns me, and as you can see, just ripping away at me now. I'm trying to be patient, so I didn't sway away there, just because I knew that if I was to sway and he hits me with another roundhouse, it definitely knocked me down. As you can see, he's throwing a lot of kicks now. He's mixing in high and low, so he's doing a good job there. And I'm cautious of the teep or front kick when I'm going in for a takedown, and he hits me with that haymaker and to get to another stun. So on the feet, like I said, your opponent is going to dominate, and you can see that. When it's on the ground, you know, I've got a much better chance of winning. As you see, I sprinted out there trying to get the takedown, but I shot and it was way out of reach. My opponent's using a lot of haymakers, as you can see, and overhands. He's mixing that in well. My opponent's doing a fairly good job. Obviously, he's still getting cracked every now and then, which isn't really ideal. In terms of takedown defense, I've seen that my opponent doesn't have the greatest takedown defense, so it was pretty easy to take my opponent down and hold him down there as well. But he was having success on the feet, and you know that could be because obviously he's a good opponent. But it's just Jan's power and Tito's lack of skill on the feet doesn't really help things. But as you can see, we're starting to deny these transitions here, build up momentum. I get my opponent in the crucifix here. We get the deny. And this is a great position for Tito to be in here and top mount, where you can really work in your ground and pound. And like I said, even if you can't get the finish here, as long as you do enough damage that when you get onto the feet, it makes your opponent a bit more cautious about the strikes he's throwing. Also, that if you slip a punch and you hit your opponent with one of Tito's big power punches, then it could be enough to either knock them out or at least get a knockdown. Then you can jump on top and then you can work the ground game again. So a very ground game orientated gameplay, very much wear and tear, control time. As you can see, I'm throwing knees to the body, trying to hinder my opponent's gas tank, and my opponent's just being very patient here, not trying to move because he didn't want to really get denied and countered. And as long as the fight stays like this, we could easily get a decision victory if the next few rounds play out like this, because my opponent definitely won the rounds prior. Big knockdowns, a lot of stuns. And yeah, this is what I was trying to say, is that when it is on the ground, you can do a lot of damage. As you see, I'm being very selective with the ground and pound just because I don't want to get countered. Because if it gets onto the feet, my opponent has much more of a chance of leveling out the fight. He's knocked me down a few times, he's already hurt me. My chin health isn't in the best position, so I know it's not going to take much for my opponent to get a knockout. So I'm being very cautious that when it goes to the feet, I know that the fight could be over with. So posture up here, and I can see my opponent's head health isn't in the greatest position. Do a decent job there with some ground and pound, although we did block a lot of the strikes. We deny my opponent getting up, and I probably could have gone for a submission here, but like I said, I was really trying to get that ground and pound finish. He somehow got up there, I didn't get the deny, and I'm trying to stay out of range of my opponent's strikes, do a good job moving my head there and avoiding the jab. As you can see, my opponent's definitely a bit more fatigued now, you can tell by the posture and how slow he's throwing the strikes. Out of range there, and a beautiful hook to finish the fight. So my opponent obviously thought he was in range, went to go for a head kick, and as you can see, he was literally just out of range. I don't even think I moved my head, land that big power shot and knocked him out. And this is where I was saying that the ground and pound work can really come into play, even on the feet where Tito isn't the greatest, because we've done enough damage and my opponent's vulnerability was high. He missed that, hit him, and then we got the beautiful knockout finish and Tito's signature celebration. So that was the video for today. If you guys have any content suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching the video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like. And if you are new around here, feel free to subscribe for more UFC content. And I'll see you guys next time.